Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me well? Not quite, by the way. So there is a camera behind us. So we hope you can hear us. So, слышал не очень хорошо, если честно. My name is Maxim Akimov. I'm in charge of the interacting with the cyber threats in CyberArk. Ilya Petrov is with me. He's representing our vendor. He's promoting the product, the head of the department. And this actual topic was about the automation tools that we have, RP, SOR, and about how to do it properly in the customer's environment. So we decided to come up with this SOC reaction and how not to drown your own company. So what are the SOCs that do exist? I was back in the day in charge of the internal SOC. Now I'm in charge of the CyberArk SOC. So there are some advantages and disadvantages that each and every one has. There are internal and hybrid ones. Here's our vision. Maybe you can argue with that, but in order just to understand that there are some differences. There are some differences between on what makes external and internal SOC, because there are different types of approach. The external SOC can be different from the internal. The main thing for SOC is the SLA base, so that you cannot be fined with contract obligations. The internal SOC has an internal point. The key point for internal SOC is not just to meet the SLA in order not to lose the money, but in order to provide the actual proper security and react on time. So internal SOC is just to fix it, block it, react, and then notify the management, whoever. We just need to fix it, analyze, come up with recommendations, and send the recommendations to the customer ASAP. So these are the features of SOC. In terms of automation, each trend has its own features, its own specifics. I've come up with not all of the automation functions, but just to make you understand that some of the SOCs basically overlap, and there are some specific differences, and the hybrid model, which can be very, very different depending on the interaction method, because it may be the first line which is deployed on the internal SOC, and line 2, line 3, and investigation of the incidents can be done externally. So that's for understanding how it actually happens. It's very important to address the automation of the standard repeated activities, just to reduce the load on analysts working in the first line, because there'd always be this alert fatigue definition. When you get tired from these alert messages, if you go ahead and scream wolf, wolf, at a certain point in time, the analyst's attention get distracted, and this analyst may easily miss the real incident. The typical errors would be typos, the spelling incorrect activities that can be highlighted in the automated way, and help the analyst avoid that. And like I was saying, due to a high load that the analyst in the first line is exposed to, his attention may be distracted, and it may lead to a mess up. Now we'll be talking about, seems like that I've said it all. Then that would be a question, another question that the customers ask, and you may ask this question as well. Why the external SOC would not take the reaction part on their shoulders? We'd never say no to the reaction But there should be a couple of questions to which the business owner is supposed to answer in the first place, and not all the time they can answer these questions easily, because normally it sounds like this. Seems like that there is a person who's on duty here. You work 24/7. It will be much easier for you to react to the incidents, right? And that always be a requirement by regulator to send this information about the incidents. How are we supposed to do that? We are asleep at this time. We let you do that. We can do it, of course, but first we need to answer a few questions. The question number one: are you really ready to give us access to managing the infrastructure? I mean, the complete access to managing your infrastructure. We need to understand how everything works. And should there be any intermediaries, some subsidiaries and contractors? That's the scope of responsibility that we're talking about. And the chance of getting a mess up is rising high and quickly. Sometimes the customer does not really have any idea about their infrastructure, and they do not understand 100% how to work with their infrastructure and how one action can influence the infrastructure and the safety and the security of the business processes. We just need to single out the high critical assets. We just need to define that these are the high critical assets. These systems are the most important. Let's focus on them, not all of the assets. And some of them are less critical, and we'd be taking a second look at them. And then the customer normally would say, all of the assets are important and are not capable of singling out the most important ones. That's what we frequently see. What we need to do is just to have a team to delve into the business processes of the company, their infrastructure, understand how one action can actually influence the security of the company's processes. And it will increase the risks, of course, because sometimes the customer would like to take all of the resolution of the issues on their shoulders. So sometimes we have a ticket about the incidents. The customer, the analyst working on the first line, starts this timer, just like a taxi driver. Or for example, if you ever played this particular RPG computer game, it really all depends on your reply, it really all depends on your answer. And you have this timer running, and you are limited, time limited, whether you should stop this timer, whether you should block it. So it would be very nice to highlight it. What would be the consequences that this event would entail? What this event would entail? What are the chances? What if the system just prompted you about that? The SFGRC is a little bit different as a topic when the prompts are given not about only the business risk, but what would be the losses if we block it, and what would be the losses if we do not block it? Like, for example, in a bank, we speak with the bank about blocking this particular IP address. Are you sure that if we block this particular IP, your business would not freeze? What if we just freeze the processing process for some time? So the bank says, okay, let's not put it in the first line of business, which does not relate to this business at all. Sometimes there is no money that the business has, but there are some other things, like, for example, the availability of the portal. For example, the State Electronic Services portal, and people cannot actually file any application there. What if we deface it? There will be reputational losses and other losses and other issues entailed. So we just need to think about it and accelerate this. And what would be the options to come up with in terms of organizing it all? First of all, we send a notification with the recommendations. The second thing is active actions that we align with the customer, set of rules, set of operating systems with which we can work without agreeing with the customer, so that we can isolate it, and the typical actions that we can have done in a couple of clicks. The recommendations from the first-line analyst, or, for example, some mobile app that the customer has with our recommendations, and we think, yes, of course, you just need to block it here, and the confirmation followed by certain activities which blocks everything. Or you just send it to SOC as a full house solution. But for this, you just need to completely put this team into the business processes. You just need to make them aware of the business processes, and the SOC takes all of the responsibility, but it's a much bigger responsibility, definitely, and it's a much bigger and more costly solution. So in terms of SOC, I explained it all, and I would like now to give the floor to Ilya, who will speak about the vendor standpoint here. Thank you, Max, and let's just swift our positions on stage. You'll just stay in the corner like I did before. I welcome everyone. I'm Ilya Petrov. In inner stage, I'm responsible for developing some product lines, and inner stage has a unique situation where we have some commercial SOC, we have operators, we have vendor solutions, so we can take a look at this problem from different angle. And as a vendor representative, I would like to fulfill and complete Max's story. This is a very important and relevant question. The automated reaction, and why the in-house SOC would not react to that, and why they would not react in a complete and proper way to a threat. This story can be properly illustrated by the following survey that you may have seen somewhere. It was a very interesting survey by anti-malware portal. And the customer did have a question: are you ready to trust with the automation tools to SOAR, automated solution? And the results are really interesting. Are you really ready? People were asked. And 27% said, yes, we are ready. By any scenario possible, by any threat, we are ready to delegate it to a complete automated solution. 45% said they are ready for this automation just for routine scenarios, like, for example, launch a check-up or block a malware through this antivirus solution that they have. 23% said they are ready to react, but they are only ready to do that in manual mode, to launch this manually, so that it's not done by a system, but instead the analyst understands where the problem lies and makes a more conscious decision out of it. And some people, 5%, said that they are not ready to this automation at all. So it seems like that most of the customers are ready for that. But here's what we know from our experience. From our experience, we know that only 2 customers out of 10 actually do react using their in-house SOC solutions. We may have an experiment here. Would you please respond to this question of mine? Who here works or owns the in-house SOC solution? Not too many hands raised, as far as I can see. But do you provide these automated reaction? Not automated, not automated, you said. But 2 out of 10, this 2 out of 10 scenario, is it really true? Or maybe it's even less or more? What would you say to that? Would you please have a show of hands who thinks it's more? So it seems like all the other people know it's less. In actual fact, we can say that you basically agree with the statistics, despite the fact that a lot of people say that they are ready to react and they are interested about that. They are interested, but they do not react. So why this is happening in the world of ChatGPT and Elon Musk world? Why is this not happening? And this is the explanation why this is not happening. Very often there is not enough context. There's not enough context to understand and make a decision to which exactly we need to react. And what would happen in actual fact if we take and block this asset? Then we sometimes lack a very structured process, a very structured decision-making process. Who and based upon which grounds that Maxime was mentioning previously, under which circumstances we just need to make a decision. We react, or on the contrary say we do not react. And there's a very important aspect here, that very frequently there's a conflict of interests between the SOC division and the IT block, because in order to make sure that we react to some infrastructure services, we need to have users' accounts. We need to have users' accounts, and the IT people need to give us the access to them. And sometimes the admins are not quite ready to do so. So what do we think can be done or should be done? Which instruments and tools could help us resolve this contradiction? I think the first and the most important thing is just to come up with the end-to-end process by analyzing the in-house SOC. Let's just move and analyze the commercial SOC. Even if not all of the in-house solutions here do react properly, are we ready to say that the teams are ready to trust in the commercial SOC solution? So I mentioned this end-to-end process. Between two teams, we just need to build this interaction, and we need to agree on things and come up with this particular map of the steps that should be taken. So in actual fact, it's quite natural that we have this reaction working properly. We need to have this in context. So basically what we need to have here is we need to have the fully fledged SMDB, the critical factor analysis, the analysis of how specific assets influence the performance of certain processes. So let me accelerate from this moment on. We know that we are running out of time. What would be possible to come up with as a tool, as a solution? So here's a story about this external SOC. You don't have this in-house SOC, you don't have a team, and you maintain a service. You have a service and some experts connect to this service of yours. So in this case, you can give access to particular accounts and set up certain interaction processes which would help us orchestrate, and together with SOC and the ERP systems launch some reaction activities. When we mentioned ERP, that you're all familiar with, a very important component would be creating an SMDB and the analysis of the criticality of the assets and how they influence the business processes. So with the use of this particular method, you can cover the issues here. And you may have a commercial SOC, a hybrid solution with the end-to-end processes when you integrate RP and ERP. Your SOC here operates as one of the reaction scenarios. So, for example, one part is covered by a commercial SOC and the other half is covered by an in-house SOC. So we have run out of time, obviously. So what would be very important for us to make sure that we react, and what instruments the commercial SOC should have and support here? First of all, we need to have end-to-end processes, a model of assets which prompts you about the risks and how these assets influence the business processes. You need to have these processes fixed, so the tasks should be divided between the teams, and there should always be trust. There should always be trust to the SOC and the tools this SOC offers. So basically, if we think that all of these components are put together, you can launch and develop this automated reaction to incidents by this commercial SOC solution. We are definitely done now, and thank you very much for listening. I doubt that we have time for questions. Maybe just for one quick one, we have some time. No questions. We've run out of time. Then no. Thank you very much. We're done, and goodbye.